Cherish every breath as long as you have it. None of these breaths is there to be given away without fully living it. Even the crappiest sit, even the most marvelous sit, no difference. Shumon Kattoshu Dai 89 足別法証券協調二徳妙法交中の徳運びく従来山を下らず現在去って三ずるに何のか向かわず一日帰って別法にあって証券すまみえ終わるに及んで帰って他のために一年三世一切小物知恵巧妙不見の訪問の徳と援護曰く徳運すでに山を下らず何によってか帰って別法にあって証券すもし他山を下るといわば胸中に徳運びく如来勝手山を下らず常に妙武高中にありとシャリに至って徳音と全財とまとまとなりにかある。Entangling Vines, Case 89, a meeting on another mountain. In a sutra, it is written that Bhikkhu Megashri dwelled on the summit of wondrous mountain and never came down. Sudana went to meet him, but could not find him, even after a week. One day, however, he encountered him on the peak of another mountain. After they met, the bhikkhu explained that the moment of thought penetrates the three worlds, manifests the wisdom light of the myriad Buddhas, and he spoke of the unobstructed perception of the infinite Buddha lands. Engo Kokugon commented, if Megashri never came down from the peak of wondrous mountain, how then could he have met Sudana on another mountain? You may say that he did leave the mountain, but it is written in the sutra that he never descended from the summit of wondrous mountain and was always there. So, where exactly were Megashri and Sudana? Welcome to day 3. This is where the Sesshin begins to warm up. Thunder rolls outside. Dharma thunder rolls inside with the hoku. And many dark cloud has passed through our minds in these first days. And more will come, and rain will come, and wind will come. And just like the good earth, like this mountain, like the surface of Beecher Lake, let us receive all of it with the generosity of the same openness of nature. Not a single raindrop is ever rejected by Beecher Lake. Not a single flower bends away from being caressed by the wind. Together, in relationship, they exercise, practice, manifest, embody a wonderful communion of not to. We are like these flowers, like these blades of grass, like the surface of Bicha Lake. Yeah, there's some fish in there, I'm sure. Some of them are pretty ugly. Sometimes they come to the surface, and you just see, and all those wings go out across the whole lake. And even there, the rain just comes and meets without discrimination, without judgment. We are so fortunate in this very, very last stretch of the 49th year of this wonderful place being open. To have a place like this. Sometimes I sit here, I wake up in the morning and, is this real? How did this come here? And the only answer is, it came here because it is needed. It is needed, for whom? For each of us. For each of us and everybody who sets foot into this building. For everybody who arrives here. I like to tell people when they come for the first time that we have to appreciate that not only figuratively but also literally. This is the end of the road. You come here, there is no going any further. And the wonderful thing is also the experience of arriving at Daibusatsu Zendo is like the experience of an oxygen molecule entering a living being through a large orifice, going down through the pharynx into the trachea, and it's getting smaller and smaller, like the roads. Then we arrive in Livingston Manor, and the road gets even smaller. We take a left turn that's going onto the left side of the lung, and it gets smaller and smaller, and smaller and smaller. And when we arrive at the end of it, this oxygen molecule finally have a chance to pass over. And life and breathing comes into existence. Exactly what we do here. We have to go to these real ends where we can meet. That's what we can't see unless we really go to this place. So the gratitude we heard about yesterday from Kimpo Sensei in his talk, I think it pervades the vast majority of people who trained here. And those who don't hold it yet, one day, miraculously will discover how wonderful. And it is with koans, you know how it is. The right koan shows up at the right time. What are we doing here? We are meeting on a mountain, right? The koan is about meeting on another mountain. So, but we are here on this mountain. I wonder if any of us was sitting there in those last couple of days, and even they were physically here, we're looking for peaks that are somewhere else, or maybe lowlands. I want to go back to the city. I want to run away. And we encounter our own functioning in a completely different way. Suddenly, we have the chance to peek into what plays out like stories, what plays out like reruns on TV. And you know, there are some crappy shows that are really still played over and over, and some people keep watching them. And I don't know if they're watching them, waiting for them to actually get better. It's more likely that they become more like the show. And so what we have a chance here to do is to just see that, okay, actually that station, there's no reception here for that station. And even if there's no reception, and unfortunately and fortunately at the same time, about 4 years ago, fiber optic internet arrived at the monastery. It was wonderful because suddenly we could do things we needed to do and not have to wait for a day where there are not too many clouds with the satellite internet or be completely cut off when it rained or snowed. But as it is in many things, it's not that suddenly it arrives and is judicially used. The data pipe opens. Oh, it's like a sewer. But it's good to know for all of us, for that, we don't need the internet. It's all, we brought it all here. It's already there. And then there's the radio station, the only station that we have. And I imagine it, I like old pictures like from Mao times in China, where in every open place there is one of those poles, and on the top there is a loudspeaker. And all the loudspeakers everywhere only play one station. Or 2 stations. One station is I radio. In all its transformation, always propaganda. I this, me this, and everywhere we go, oh, let's go to a different place. You cannot hide from it. And if that station sometimes stops, then the other station comes on, and that's the why station. Why? Why do I? And so it goes back and forth. And there we are. Most of the time, taking all of this, just lying down. Okay, bring it on. But it gets tiresome. And when it gets tiresome, then we come to a place like this one here. Especially when we get tired of ourselves and being caught up. And then we meet here on this mountain, where we sweat, where we sleep very little, where we sit, and where we get to meet the silence. Not stillness necessary, or static, but the silence of the birds singing, the silence of the thunder, the silence of the leaves rustling, the silence of actually hearing our heart beat. And that opens a gate into a realm that seems all too wondrous, but that we also need to know we brought here. All right, so let's look at this koan today. The sign that we have when the person giving the talk picks up the water, anything goes. When the water goes down, then stillness returns. Case 89. A meeting on another mountain. In a sutra, it is written that Bhikkhu Megashri dwelt on the summit of Wondrous Mountain and never came down. Which sutra is that? Have you all read your sutras? No, you don't have to anymore. Now we have the internet. We can just look it up. And I really gratefully, it's a really gratitude to having these wonderful things available in a different way than in the past. Next time you go and have Doksan, in the Doksan room, in the Kaisando, in the middle you have the Buddha, and then you have the two bookshelves. And there are these brown leather-bound volumes that on the top have a phoenix kind of bird on there. That is the Taisho Codex. That is the Japanese edition of the Tripitaka. So you would have had to go and look in there and find the sutra. I read this somewhere. Very difficult to find, but that's why we have each other. When the internet is not there, we still need folks who know this or that. As it used to be in the times of the Buddha, where there was no writing in India, it was forgotten. But fortunately there was Ananda. Ananda could remember everything the Buddha said. Everything. And some of it was written down 200 years later, after being imparted on Dharma vessels who could hold it. I wonder if there were more sometimes about the things that Ananda memorized that were not written down. What did the Buddha say? Like, oh, Mahakashyapa, that was really a lousy meal. A lousy meal tonight. He even remembered that, but we didn't get to see that. But what we get to see are these sutras. So this sutra, I'll give it away to you. In Japanese, it's called the Kegon-kyo, the Flower Garland Sutra, or the Avatamsaka Sutra. In that sutra, it has this expression. And the sutra has 40 chapters. And it's called the Flower Garland Sutra because the teachings of the Buddha, they grow and they bloom like the flowers on a vine, or even when people put it together into a garland that then adorns something that already is inherently beautiful. So that's the Avatamsaka Sutra. That's where it is written that the Bhikkhu Megashri dwelt on the summit of the wondrous mountain, and he never came down. Wondrous mountain. In this text, there are 4 characters for the wondrous mountain. Myo Bu Kocho. That's how it is written, how it's pronounced in the edition of Domai Roshi of the Shumon Kato Shu. But we also know it in a 3-character version as Myoho-cho. Myoho-cho, and that appears in a different koan. That appears in Blue Cliff Record case 23. This case goes like this. Hofuku points to Myoho-cho. Main case. When Hofuku and Choke went out for a walk, Hofuku, pointing with his finger, said, "This is Myoho-cho." Myo, marvelous. Ho, peak. Cho, top. Choke said, "What you say is well said, but alas." A monk related this to Kyosei, who said, "But for Choke's remark, the field would have been littered with skulls." So here this mountain appears, this mythological, sacred mountain. Human beings seem to have some kind of thing with mountains. The only natural thing that you can experience on the mountain readily is falling off it. So, of course, what do human beings do? I have to go to the very top. And it seems silly when you look up how many corpses are frozen on Mount Everest. There's a map, there's a corpse map. Yeah, I know, but ultimately it's really not funny. But there's a corpse map, and some of the corpses cannot be removed because they are too deep frozen into the place where they are. And some even serve as an extra place to hold on to when you go over that cliff where that person fell off. But the underlying expression of us human beings feeling that we have to go to a place, the highest place, the place we can see from really everything, to get from this being stuck to the flat land where we can't see around the corner. That's a very, very deep longing we all have. And I believe it is this longing that made human beings invent religion. And I really think religion, and the vast majority of all the great religions, are wonderful in their teachings, in their expressions. They only get difficult at one point, as soon as the human comes in. As I said in the atonement ceremony, we as a species, we have a lousy track record, especially with religion. Taking religion as a tool to discriminate, to elevate ourselves. That's not what it's meant to be. You cannot climb Mount Everest and use it. That's how we have to approach this longing of finding this Myoho-cho, this mythological sacred mountain. If we call it Kailash, if we call it Ararat, where the ark sat down, if it is the Temple Mount, it doesn't matter. So this is mentioned in this Avatamsaka Sutra. The Avatamsaka Sutra speaks a lot about Dharmakaya, the ultimate reality. But of course, it has 40 chapters, so it better have a story in there. If you have something with 40 chapters, it's good to have a story. And this story of Sudana begins in chapter 39. And well, it's a hard read, but then it really pays off, because you can discover yourself in Sudana. Sudana was a layperson. And we are all lay human beings, you know? It's so hard to become a professional human. So from that point of view, we are all dilettantes. But it's a wonderful word, dilettante. Dilettante, mostly people think, oh, it's somebody who doesn't get it all the way and does pretty well. But no, dilettante means it's somebody, it comes from diligere, which means to really love and cherish. So Sudana met somebody. I don't know where, I don't know how, but it happened to be that they met, and Sudana said to him, "Hey dude, what's your name?" And the guy said, "Well, my name, Manjushri. Nice to meet you." How fortunate. Manjushri, what do you do for work? Oh, I take people to the highest realms of realization. Cool. Can you help me? Sudana said, and of course, come on. It's very easy. We'll go through these 2 chapters, and all you have to do is visit 53 teachers. Some of them live at the top of a mountain. They never leave. Actually, the first one lives on top of that mountain. The very first one. This bhikkhu, Megashri, lives on that first mountain. So in Japanese, Sudana's name is Zenzai. Earnestly seeking for truth, earnestly wanting to climb all the mountains that need to be climbed to see above the limitations of the 2-dimensional flat world. So he's following Manjushri's instructions. He ascends the mountains to see Bhikkhu Megashri, Tokku-un, which Tokku is virtue, and Un is cloud. Bhikshu is just a disciple of the Buddha. So he gets to that mountain, and he goes up the mountain. He stands on the peak, on the top, barely enough room to put his feet down. There's nobody here. Where is the bhikshu that was promised? Let me wait for 7 days. Maybe he will show up. Seven days pass. The bhikshu hadn't shown up. By now, I'm sure Sudana's feet must have hurt standing on the top of that mountain. But it was so tall and so pointed that sitting down would have hurt even more. 7 days. What are we doing here? We are sitting for 7 days. Be Sudana, but also be not Sudana. Don't wait for anything. Don't wait for awakening to show up. Not here yet, no. A little doom scrolling. Here or there or here, no difference. No waiting. Here we are on the top of the mountain. 7 days. When you read about how people explain it, there are all kinds of explanations. I'm sure you have seen the Sekida book about the 2 Zen classics. And in case 23 in the notes, it says something what he thinks the 7 days mean. I'm not even going to repeat it. You can read it if you're interested. It's very brainy. Very brainy. But there he is. Now this Manjushri character, do we know what he looks like? I want you to know how he looks like. If you see him, he can do the same thing for you. Please bring me to the highest peak of realization. What does he look like? He's right there. Number one, there's a picture of him on the left side there. The only thing it doesn't say is wanted. But that's what you want to find him. On the left side, Manjushri. Here, carved in wonderful wood at the foot of our Buddha statue with the sword. What kind of a sword is that?
Discriminating wisdom.
Discriminating wisdom. I'd like a sword that says discrimination. No. Let's find a nicer way to say it. What does the sword do? It cuts. What does it do? It cuts not in two, it cuts in one. It cuts in one. It's very different. Very different. Manjushri. Monju Bosatsu. And when you go to Japan and you look at Shingon temples or Tendai temples, there might be a statue of Manjushri with 4 other statues. And one of them actually is Sudana. So Manjushri and Sudana are shown together. So there's Manjushri. Now Sudana has 52 more teachers he goes to in the Avatamsaka Sutra, chapter 39. And he gets all the way through. And then he encounters, at the end of the chapter, the great Sun Buddha, Dai Nichi Nyorai, Buddha Vairocana. Now, what does Buddha Vairocana look like? I wish we would know. Why are you laughing? This is a statue of Dainichi Buddha, right there. Manifesting Dharmakaya, the ultimate reality. Sitting there. Of course he sits there because this is Myoho-cho. This is the wondrous mountain. So there, Vairocana. And he leads Sudana to his last teacher, and that is Fugen Bosatsu, Samantabhadra. By now you figured out the shtick, you know. Samantabhadra is also there. He sits on the right side of the Buddha, on his white elephant with 6 tusks. Also the picture, there you on the right side. And what happens to Sudana and Samantabhadra in chapter 40? Manjushri does his thing, and he cuts them into one. No more separation. That's the journey of Sudana that happens in this Avatamsaka Sutra. I think I should drink something so you can move. Fugen, Samantabhadra, literally means universal goodness. And they become one. And when the human, after going through 53 stages of Bodhisattva teachings, becomes one with this universal goodness, what comes out of it? Vows. Vows, the 10 vows of Samantabhadra, to pay homage to all the Buddhas. all of us, to glorify the qualities of all the Tathagatas, to make ample offerings to all the Buddhas, to confess, I don't like confess, to atone for all of one's misdeeds. That's why we have an atonement ceremony. And that's why atonement turns into a mode of being through a vow like this, to rejoice in the goodness of others, to always be open to the teachings of the Dharma, to take care of awakened beings, to remain in this world of suffering, to always study the teachings of the Buddha, to always respond to sentient beings according to their various needs, and to dedicate all merits and all purpose to sentient beings so they may achieve Buddhahood. We can think about this in the traditional way of a spiritual system of castes, but we know as Zen practitioners that is not what stands behind it. We are the Buddhas. However you came here, you are a Tathagata. Even if you stumbled in your spot here, fell down, and are hanging in that seat barely by a thread, you are a Tathagata. You know why? Tathagata means such come. It doesn't say how that such is. Just as it is, completely embraced, unjudged, unseparated, without bounds. On San Maya Satavan, On San Maya Satavan is the mantra of Samantabhadra. And Samantabhadra is the personification of practice, the bodhisattva of practice. So, we made it over the first sentence of the koan. We don't even know why Megashri never came down. They did not have super glue yet, and nobody played a trick on him that he couldn't leave. So when Sudana went to meet him, could not find him, even after a week. One day, however, he encountered him on the peak of another mountain. So what is not said here is, of course, that Sudana went from this peak to another peak. And apparently he was not looking for Sudana there. Maybe it was even the last person. Sudana, maybe he wasn't looking for the bhikshu there. But especially when he was not looking. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Who are you? I am what you have been searching for so long. And I came the moment you stopped running after me. But at the same time, it's still true. I can only be found at the top of a mountain. After they met, the bhikshu explained that a moment of thought penetrates the three worlds. Sanze. What are the three worlds? We translate it a little different in our meal verse. Sanze there is translated as the three periods of time. The world of Kako, past, Genzai, now, and Mirai, future. A moment of thought penetrates the three periods of times. It manifests the wisdom light of the myriad Buddhas. And then he spoke of the unobstructed perception of the infinite Buddha lands. It's quite a wordy translation of a few characters. The four characters, Ichi Nen Sanze. Literally, one Nen reaches the three periods of time. Issai Shobutsu. All Buddhas. Chie Komyo. Wisdom. Bright light. Fuken no Homo no Toku. Universal Dharma light gate. So in this moment, when we sit here, when we walk here, when we run into something sharp, when we sneeze, when we cough uncontrollably, Ichi Nen Sanze, the only Nen of the presence of this moment. Manchushi cuts it into one. And in that we learn to see that manifestation of the Dharmakaya, of the ultimate truth, is manifest. Now it goes on. The Zen school always has to add something to it. There's the sutra and then comes Engo Kokugon. Engu Kokugon. The compiler of the Blue Cliff record. And Zen people always make trouble. So Engo says, well, if this bhikshu never came down from the peak of this mountain, how could he then have gone to the peak of another mountain? You may say that he did leave the mountain, but it is written clearly in the sutra that he never descended from the summit of Wondrous Mountain and was always there. So, where exactly were Megashri and Sudana? Where did they meet? Where did Sudana and Samantabhadra meet? Where is that? Is it a place? Is it a time? Is it a thing? We're here to find that out. This whole wonderful painting of metaphors, of ascension, of peak, of descending, of ascending, of meeting, of leaving, sounds somewhat familiar. We pay a lot of attention to our breath here. The top of the mountain is reached. Can't go any further. Have to come down. But even if we do it this way and we think about it, then okay, inhalation. exhalation. The sword has not cut yet. It's still 2. That's the same as wanting to go to the top and having here and there. So what we do with the breath is what? No inhalation, no exhalation, just. So, in other words, we are investigating the functioning of this dynamic activity of Dharma. The functioning. And we can see more and more how it plays out everywhere. Everywhere. The sun rises, the sun sets, the wind comes, the wind goes. All of this is wonderfully manifested as this activity without any difficulty. The only time we have difficulty with it is in the moment when we get caught by the content that this activity brings forth. Breathing. Now let's continue with the breathing metaphor. If you're attached to the content, and even if you know about, and you don't call it inhalation and exhalation, you just go. If you breathe into a plastic bag that's being attached to the content, it's always the same air. Eventually, you will have sucked all the oxygen out of it and pass out. And what is that passing out? Again, the same activity of not being able to hold anything. Content as a thing, when we make it into a thing, if that is a feeling, if that is an aspiration of becoming the kindest person in the world, if it is idiot compassion, as we heard yesterday, if it is whatever, that's a thing. It is content that we separate, and separation means we cannot be one with the function. What do you think is the most important for such a dynamic function to really have its natural course? Space, yeah. We have to give it space, we have to give it time. We have to allow it. We have to allow ourselves to be that function without putting up any kind of resistance. It's actually fairly mechanical. If you think, no, visualize this function, this activity of Dharma as a belt sander that is always moving. You want to hold on to your hand and put it to that sander? You will feel it. You will feel the friction. And that friction we experience as suffering. Oh, I wouldn't want to get my skin taken off. All the way to the bone. No. So we learn over time to address these impediments. These impediments might be impediments that are unique to us. It might be impediments that we have learned. It might be impediments that are very, very difficult to take care of. There are two kinds, the klesas. There are two. One is bonno. That is the bonno that we chant with bonno mujin. That bonno. That's what we can work on by following those 10 vows, by following the 10 important precepts that we all recited, by taking refuge, by doing zazen and all of that. But then the really, really elusive jikke, those kind of things are like climbing those mountains very slowly, assiduously, putting one foot in front of the other, and even before stepping, making sure it's safe to stand there to go to the next step. I will not follow the temptation to call this top of the mountain anything, any state, any goal, any place, any time. But you get the gist of it when you hear what Engo says. If Megashi never came down from the peak of Wondrous Mountain, how could then he have met Sudana on another mountain? You may say that he did leave the mountain, but it is written in the sutra that he never descended from the summit of Wondrous Mountain and was always there. We chanted it yesterday in English, where that peak of this wondrous mountain is and what the function that happens at that mountain is. As the truth eternally reveals itself. The bhikkhu resides at that point by having no hindrances in being taken wherever it takes. Not whole, not low, not high, not hot, not cold, not 7 days, not a week, not a day. Completely surrendered. Our practice of Zazen, our practice of no self, our practice of atonement, our practice of chanting is the practice of dana, of giving ourselves completely to the wondrous mountain, to let the wondrous. There's no two. There is no one. And we are all on it. Right now. So please, 7 days seems like a long time. 7 days, 7 hours, 7 sits, 7 breaths, 7 thoughts, 7 nen, 49 years. Makes no difference. Please use this time to really connect with what all of this teaching is exhorting us to learn. And all it is to be truly alive here. Cherish every breath as long as you have it. Sometimes I ask students, do you do breath counting? Yes, I go from 1 to 10. And I said, okay, try this. Count down from 10. And keep the awareness. This is really what it is. None of these breaths is there to be given away without fully living it. Even the crappiest sit, even the most marvelous sit, no difference. Myo Onchiko, Maureen Stewart, in one of her talks, she talked about Sesshin. And sometimes when people read it, they don't fully understand what she meant when she said, in Sesshin, when you sit, you have to sit with the awareness that you have to become oblivious to whatever happens to you. That sounds so awful. You know, that sounds like you just sit there and then somebody puts you in the meat grinder or something like that. It will feel like that. But it is a generosity that is in there of giving yourself fully to whatever this wondrous, mysterious peak reveals. Please be diligent. This is your life. Please live it.